I am amazed by the technology, but I'm also not blindly jumping in because everybody is jumping in.
I feel like there's an entire spectrum of AI skepticism versus evangelism.
What's your problem? Like, what problem are you trying to solve? I think procurement that survives is going to be hyper-personalized.
I'm here with Victoria Folbigg. She's calling in from the UK. Victoria is the CEO of Folbigg Consulting and recently co-founded an AI Procurement Academy. She has spent decades in the procurement universe at SAP Ariba, Barclays, Procter Gamble, and more. And so really excited to have Victoria with me today for a conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Spencer.
Absolutely. So I'll start and ask, how did you first get into the world of procurement? I saw that you were at Procter and Gamble. That's in Cincinnati. So you'd mentioned you'd spend some time there. So I'd love to hear how you found the world of procurement.
Okay, Spencer. Like, you know how we talked about me living on a working farm now because my son had too much fun in Singapore and we wanted to take him away from
Yeah,
the party town into nowhere, basically.
sure.
That's what happened a little bit with me. Because yeah, the apple and the tree, I tell you, the good and the bad and the ugly. But basically, the short the short of it was that I was in London at a university and I had so much fun, and I did well. I had a 2-1 in business studies with languages, but what
Hmm.
I didn't do well was I didn't understand the way the system works. And the way the system works is that you have to basically apply like a year in advance to all the good graduate gigs. Or that's how it used to be. I think that's still the same now. Like my
Hmm.
son's not finished uni, but he's already applying to the finished school, but
Yeah.
he's already applying to uni. And everything is like a year in advance. So, and I came from a different, from a different country. I didn't know the rules. Nobody was really there to guide me that much. I embraced London life, and then I came and got my results. And the kind of gigs that I got were small boutique consulting companies, obviously because I have a number of languages, certain firms that gravitated towards that kind of CV and profile of person. So I started working and I realized I just can't. I just can't
Hmm.
because I needed a bigger work environment. I needed more
Yep.
stimulation, etc. So then I went back to my dad and begged that I do that he gives me one more year and bankrolls a master's for me. And that was actually in Oxford University is a master's program for people who didn't go to work um, before and so could do it straight into from uni. And then I had my head screwed up. Then I totally applied to all the graduate programs, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things I also really loved and was exposed to from my family was procurement, was trading. I had a couple of opportunities within. There was a graduate fair, a couple of opportunities within Procter and Gamble, massive brand, exciting. The people that came to this fair were really interesting to talk to. And there was finance and then there was procurement. And I basically just enjoyed more speaking to the procurement folk. So I then applied, got the exams done with because there were quite a lot of exams and got accepted. So, it took me a while, but it was then I got accepted into the health and beauty care division in outside of London. And then another thing, which is very emotional, when you go in and at that time, there were like loads of perfumes that they were doing and creams and makeup pencils and all the rest of it. So you go into the toilets and you have all of this stuff there. And
Yeah.
you're like, do you know what? I want to work here because I want to buy these things. Like this is
Yeah.
completely what I want to do, you know?
That's
Like
amazing.
you went into Tesla, but what you can see what you're buying. But when you're 20, you want to associate with something. You want to
Yeah.
find your tribe. And your tribe is about exciting people, a little bit like flippant people, exciting people
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
also are doing something kind of visual. So that's how I got in, and that's how I started.
That's amazing. I love it. And I'm curious, you said you enjoyed talking with the procurement folks the most at the job fair. What do you think it was that really clicked there? I mean, I know I'm asking you to go back in ancient history, but
Mm, 28 years.
Yeah,
28
yeah,
years. What was so interesting about Procter& Gamble, I still believe it's one of the best companies in terms of procurement organization, is that they had a real European roster of people. They had men and women. They had young and older experienced people. But you
yeah,
go in there and you could identify with a team, with a subset. So, and I really wanted to not go into, you know, 70% male, if I may say so. I
yeah.
wanted to find my tribe that I could deal with. There's a lot of young people as well. So the people that I'm still in touch with, and the lady who I actually met up with in DPW was a lady who was there in Barclays 28 years ago, but she was a couple of years above me. She was one of the managers. So we're still keeping in touch, and she's an Irish lady. So people who were, yeah, I mean, the people who were invited to, and I was also speaking to on a lot of graduate events. The people who they bring out to the graduate events are not necessarily directors of procurement. They're people who are a couple of years older than the grads, and you can kind of click with them. And they
Mhm,
were dynamic, young, sharp, people that are from different various backgrounds, and you say, "Yeah, I want to be part of that kind of energy." But
mhm.
they curated it consciously or subconsciously really, really well.
That's amazing. Well, I'll tell you,
Mm.
I don't know if we talked about this, but, my mom actually spent her career at Procter& Gamble as
Oh,
well,
you didn't tell
but
me.
I think she was a little bit before your time, to be totally honest, but she always talked she was in the marketing side, so kind of the opposite side of the house.
Wow.
And, and her and I remember when I was growing up, her sort of claim to fame, if there was one, was that she was working on Olay, which is the sunblock, and that before she was involved, it was just about SPF, which was the level of protection, and then she was the person who came up with the concept of, like, the 4-hour versus all day, the sort of duration element of the sunblock too, and that was, like, a big breakthrough moment for the brand, so seems small, but these small things can make a huge difference when the messaging really lands, you know?
It's huge, and marketing in P&G is where everybody, like, I didn't even know that marketing existed, but part
Yeah,
of marketing within P&G is where everybody aspired to be, because the creativity of these
yeah,
people. So you come from an amazing pedigree, because I remember how they would talk about, like, I had to, in my last gig for Procter& Gamble, buy seaweed
okay.
for creams. And so developmental chemicals. So the seaweed typically at that point, again, like 25 years ago or something, was only something that they bought for food grades, but not for creams. So what they've asked me then to do is scaling the production of something with actually a cheaper ingredient, because it didn't
Mhm.
have to be food grade. And at the scale that we bought it, we needed it to be more cost effective. So then I
Right.
had to like do all the research when Google and AI was non-existent to find, production,
Oh my goodness.
European and global production facilities, yeah, for suit. And so all these things were dreamed up by marketing and R&D. And it was amazing to be part of like the creativity and the creation of new products that P&G
Yeah.
rolled out, especially in that beauty care division that she was also part of.
How did you I've basically been with the internet as long as I can remember. How do you even go about finding suppliers in a pre-internet world? I mean, is it all, word of mouth? Who do you know? I mean, how did you go about doing that? That's it's amazing.
A lot of it was word of mouth, but
Yeah,
also you had these massive yellow books, and you'd go through
sure.
and, uh, expos, fairs,
Right.
we had these massive business cards. So when I started, there was like a handover plus a stack of business cards that
Okay.
were given to me. These are the people you might want to talk to. Yeah. And expos, a lot of expos. I tell you also, like, just to geek out on
Yeah,
PhD and marketing, because I was in the health and beauty care division, and I was then buying the packaging, so the
yeah.
cardboard packaging. We were allowed to go to Monaco to the expo that was about the new packaging development. You'd come by helicopter from Nice to Monaco.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it was a most amazing, lavish, like palace come conference center where on every, so like we talk about DPW and yeah, it has like the vibe. This vibe was glitter,
Wow.
like champagne on every kind of area of a supplier. Because of course, what they were selling premium packaging
Yeah.
for the amazing creams and perfumes. And I remember as an aside, as procurement, we were saying, well, what cost saving strategies could we bring to the table to procurement? And one of them was, well, we take away the paper packaging of a cream. And people were like, ha 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 ha. Never. Like they buy it for the packaging. They buy it to unpack. And then we said, well, this is all virgin paper, it's all white. So when you rip it, it's white inside. Can we not like put it white, but on the inside have like recyclables cheaper? You crazy? They want to feel the thick white virgin paper. So
Yeah.
it was all about experience, even there. And
Right.
maybe it wasn't as finessed as behavioral science, but it was still like pretty much live about what experience can you give in these luxury high-end cosmetics and perfumes. Yeah.
It's really amazing. I feel like these sometimes these lessons come back again and again. And actually, you know what I have on my desk is a case
Ah,
for an Apple AirPods. And so I think it's
yeah.
sort of funny because everyone says like, okay, they did such an amazing job with their packaging, and that's part of the experience. But look, this far predates the iPod, and so people sometimes learn, reinvent these age old lessons again and again, and they can work.
Or I think they borrow them because how do you unpack a luxurious perfume or an amazing champagne bottle? When they did this whole thing in Apple, I think they looked at the most amazing unpackaging experience, and then they went a little bit further of saying, how do I make sure it doesn't close, but it gently, kind of closes.
Put the lid on,
Yeah.
and it oh
And it gently comes down, but it doesn't flop, right?
yeah, it's got like an air pocket or something. Yeah,
That's it.
yeah, it's
That's
amazing. Well, let's zoom forward 20 something years. I saw the LinkedIn update that you're now working as the co-founder. I love co-founders. I empathize with them all
Aw.
the time. I am one. The AI Procurement Academy. I'd love to learn a bit about that. And in the description it says we keep hearing the same thing from procurement professionals. AI sounds exciting, but I don't know how to use it safely in my work. I'd love to learn about what brought you to working on that. What is the AI Procurement Academy? Where you see the big blockers and opportunities are.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, we're actually now in the process of testing our 3 courses with a cohort that we've selected, and we're growing this thick skin about like, oh, they like this course. Oh, they didn't like this course.
Yeah,
Oh, they like this course.
yeah.
But the genesis of this, and actually, we found each other. The guy who I've co-founded it with, Richard Reynolds and me, we actually never met face to face, but we've been on a lot. Yeah, that's another very interesting thing. So I meet a lot of co-founders who've grown up through uni together or been working together 12 years. This is the amazing life of the internet now. And really profiling people is so difficult now because even oldies like me can behave in a very erratic way. But from starting the idea in June, July to now, of having a MVP really is what, 20 weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we came together because both of us were geeking out on AI, both of us as former CPOs, but also people leaders. And I do a lot of curation of executive forums and roundtables for category managers. So pretty much very, very into still procurement as a subject and educating people who are doing procurement. What I'm hearing is a lot of noise from consulting companies about the art of the possible and that you can actually drive efficiencies 50, 60%. And then you see MIT or actually 95% don't get the ROI. And then so a lot of confusion in the middle. And then we started seeing, or I started seeing a lot of training sessions that were either software led, which is nothing wrong with that, but it gives you a specific outcome and vision, right? And also couple of them that were very high touch in terms of you want to get a cohort together that's live, and then they have to do certain sessions, and they are on webinars together for 4 hours or something. And this is just not the reality of like most procurement. So what our vision was is to create bite-sized procurement courses that are 100% online. Sure,
Okay.
if there's a community, we curate them. If they want to have a community, everybody wants to have a community now. But quite
Sure.
frankly, not every community is going really well. You know, I
Hmm.
think people are a little bit also like tired of
Interesting.
communities. Do you know what I mean? So what we wanted to do, light touch, very digital. We created our own avatars because we also were drinking the champagne. We were also looking and investigating and trialing and working on AI marketing and AI educational products. And so we created a couple of courses that are based on our knowledge, but are really easily accessible. So the whole point is that um, you're on a commute home, you can listen to it. So you don't have to actually say, oh, I have to stop and stop what I'm doing. And I have to take a day off, or I have to do it over the weekend. You do it when you want to do it. It's very easy, it's digestible. It has a lot of checklists, ebooks, etc. with it if you want to supplement your learning, because your learning is multi, visual, sensual. How do you say that in the English? Like you want to read, you want to listen,
Yeah. Like
sensory.
multimodal sensory. Okay.
Yeah, multisensory. So we've catered for all of that. But the whole point was also what we found is a lot of people are talking about it. But if you start talking to people, even in big organizations, and I spent 12 years in Singapore, big organizations, but the regional hubs are often forgotten. So
Yeah.
maybe something amazing is happening at the headquarters, but the regional guys still don't know what's happening. So, and they
Mhm.
want to get into the conversation and they want to upskill themselves. So this
Right.
is kind of the persona that we have designed the training for. So it's not for corporations. If somebody tells me, hey, can you design something for a corporate? I'd love to do that. But the
Sure.
primary reason is for individuals.
And is the use case around, helping them to use things like the foundation model, so ChatGPT, in their day-to-day work, or is it to help them understand more about the underlying technologies and capabilities, or maybe other vendors that are incorporating things into more like procurement specific workflows? I guess I'm kind of curious, like, if somebody's, maybe if I think about it, what's the dream state for the folks coming out of the courses?
And we are writing them. And nothing is
Yeah.
standing still. The demands are different because the technology is moving so fast. And
Right.
so we started off just demystifying it. Because what I like to do is I like to actually say, but how do I do it? Like answer the question, what does that
Yeah.
mean for me? What should I do? What shouldn't I do?
Sure.
So there is a baselining of risk growth. There's also, I geeked out on prompting quite a lot
Okay.
about saying what to do, what not to do, but also things like, hey, ChatGPT is agreeable. Just understand your own bias. If you put a certain question in with a small bias, it'll reflect it back to you. So if you
Yeah.
want to know, these are amazing tools, but you need to know how they're built. And so
Right.
then you go, hey, DeepSeek is really good, but it's good for these things probably better. ChatGPT is amazing, but please don't do any searches on ChatGPT, even 5.1. Just go to Perplexity.
Hmm.
And we're doing that through actually having these tools ourselves and using them every day and then distilling down. And doing, I think, these things that procurement wants to do but can't do because they have their day jobs is just literally taking the same prompts across the different Gen AIs and going, okay, how does it work? This is one angle of it,
Yeah.
is being non-technical but saying, hey, this is that the beauty of it. So you're basically working alongside a person who might be very, very smart, but actually who can also hallucinate. And this is how you can minimize
Right.
our hallucinations, right? Because it's not tech. It's an augmented kind of individual. I'm not going to talk about feelings, but in terms of how it learns, right? It learns. So then you talk about what to put in there, what not to put in there. We do a lot of confidential stuff, but it's
Yeah.
amazing how often we still need to say, please don't put supplier names in there. Please don't put, people's names in there. And that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, though, is procurement as category strategists need to know certain things and they want to do certain things faster. So how can it apply, whether it's Microsoft Copilot that's already within your infrastructure or something that you use on the site, how can it apply to augment your team, your performance? What are agents? Like,
Hmm.
is that even a thing? Should you build it from scratch or should you take it from and these are opinions, but I'd like to think that these are educated opinions of people who've been testing them, trialing them, talking to a lot of experts. And that's what we'd like to do, but also looking at analysis, for example, that we major in as procurement. Like, there are a couple of off-the-shelf AI augmented analysis tools, and they might be good, but then also you could create something pretty neat in
Yeah.
generic Gen AI tools, right?
Yeah.
Um, and they're really powerful. And in fact, what
Yeah.
I'm seeing is a lot of
Absolutely.
the stuff you can create is is beyond belief. It's like, the limit is only our creativity in terms of what we can
I
do.
know.
We need to understand the guardrails, right?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I mean, of course, like at Lightsource, we're using it. I think about AI in a few different ways. One is, of course, we have to use AI in our product, right? The second is how do we use AI within our business itself? And, we recently hired a leader of our solutions engineering. So that's the group that will work with the sales folks to do really tailored demos and prepare like use cases specific to the client. And he's built out these great sets of Gemini gems within Notebook LLM, the Google product.
Yeah.
And it's not that I think Gemini is in particular better or worse than we use mostly Anthropic and a few others in our product, but that interface is really nice. You can drag in a bunch of PDFs and then have a structured prompt and say, I want this, and then it outputs a briefing for the account executive. So when they come into the conversation, it's as if, it's not sure, it's not better than if they spend weeks researching the company on their own, but it can get them. But that's not happening, frankly. So it's like better to get them up to speed so they can at least have a really thoughtful conversation. I agree with you, and I think that I feel like there's an entire spectrum of AI, skepticism versus evangelism. Some people you meet them and the future is TBD, but there's some people where they're like, they really don't believe in this stuff. They don't think it's interesting, or they think it's a hoax, or it's going to, have its winter, soon, and the bubble's going to pop. And then there's some folks who say like, we haven't even seen the tip of the spear yet, and
Yeah.
I'm certainly in the camp of, I just think these technologies are absolutely stunning. And I'm so excited. Actually, I've never been so excited in my whole life about where technology is headed. But are you seeing the same thing? And where do most procurement folks fall? And how do you think the job is going to change as these technologies kind of come into the fore? And one of the biggest questions also is, does it augment or does it replace? That's one of those central questions. So yeah, I mean, nobody knows the answers, but I'm curious to hear you pontificate a little bit on this stuff.
And you asked me three questions.
I know.
And as I was thinking about one question, I forgot the other two. But in terms of like my stance on I am excited, but I'm also annoyed with a certain type of either procurement or tech professionals who put AI on everything.
Yeah.
And I am enough of a tech nerd to say if robotic process automation is an answer, just for heaven's sake, do that. You
Yeah.
know, like RPA is really good for moving from one system to another system. Don't say everything has to have AI sprinkled on top of it. It's maybe because I'm so into this topic and I am very excited about the technology and scared a little bit as well. So I just want people to know what it is and make their own decisions and also not say like we're hearing or I heard at DPW some people went around and said, hey, my CEO said or my CPO said, let's just, where are my AI projects? And I'm like, What's your problem? Like, what
Mhm.
problem are you trying to solve? Like, let's solve some cool problems here that we probably didn't manage to solve because of scale, because of all the data that wasn't read properly, or the insights that we couldn't produce, et cetera, et cetera. So, from my perspective, I love it, but it has certain use cases, and in certain use cases, don't use it. Yeah. And then you go down to the different AIs. You have the generic ones, and then you have the ones that the source to P systems haven't built in, like you guys and everybody else. And then the question is it better for you to develop yourself, or is it better for you to do this? And of course, I am on the other side of all of this as well as a procurement person saying, I want to understand what the suppliers are doing with it, how much they're
Mm.
investing, but what data they're collecting and how they are setting themselves up, because I want to understand what is happening in that black box too. Yeah. So so
Yeah.
so there is so there is that, and I was geeking out because I did an executive forum of European procurement leaders on Wednesday, ran a face-to-face one in Amsterdam. Been back to Amsterdam this week. And so a lot of time we spoke about actually the EU AI Act. Something
Interesting.
interesting for you as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you see that it is going to change the way Europe consumes AI. So for
Interesting.
procurement, it's not only the procurement systems, but it's also how do you negotiate with a company that has AI, number one. And number two, how do you ask the right questions of the companies that have AI within their products and services? And
Right.
so a lot of the AI that is a little bit hyper personalized is actually something that could be interpreted as high risk in Europe because of the regulation. So, applicant tracking systems, profiling,
Yeah.
that, for example, I think is going to come up as high risk within Europe. So, all these applicant tracking system companies will have to justify what they're doing, how they're holding data, what are their algorithms, and so forth. So, there's a lot of stuff happening that procurement doesn't have time to necessarily think about and distill what
Wow.
we want to bring to it. So I am amazed by the technology, but I'm also not blindly jumping in because everybody is jumping in. I'm trying to figure out where the best use cases for this technology is.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And everything you're saying, I completely echo. I mean, I was on the other side of that table where people would come up and say, we have an AI initiative and we'd like to bring AI into the company. And people are asking me, what's your AI strategy? And I'm like, great. So, and I say, what do you want to achieve? And then it's like crickets, blank stares. It's like, we want AI. I'm like, to do what? And they don't really
Yeah.
know. So it's one of these things where, I guess that's, it's like anything, like, that's it's a risk, but it's also an opportunity, right? Because,
Yeah.
when I think about it, it gives us then an opportunity to really define what the technology is. And at some level, it's like, that old Henry Ford quote, if you ask people what they wanted, they would say a faster horse, right? Instead of a car. And so, people are asking, we know we have something powerful. What do we do with it? So I kind of feel like in some ways it's up to we're product people, right? And so, it's our responsibility, but we have to understand the pain points that people are looking to solve. Like, that's the thing. That's where the balance is between the customer and the technology provider, is that the customer, what I tell my team to do this, and I'll just tell you in secret, although it's recorded. I tell them, listen very intently to their problems and pain points, but ignore their ideas on the technology front, because a lot of times folks
Yeah.
have like they know,
Yeah.
like the back of their hand, exactly what they're experiencing, their pain points, what they need to get done, but
Yeah.
then the way that they think technology will solve the problem is not always correct. And so that's on us on
Correct.
the engineering side to say, hey, look, maybe we can actually think a little bit bigger about the art of the possible beyond what people are asking for. And so, because what people ask for generally is what they've already seen, or variants of what they've already seen. So, but I'm curious from your perspective, what do you feel like are the biggest problems within procurement that your instinct is telling you, hey, AI should be able to solve these things? Is it small pieces like helping you draft emails to suppliers or responses or evaluating bids, or is it much bigger things? I'm trying to think about, and I don't have the answers to these things, to be clear. I think about them every single day, but I still don't have the answers.
So I must agree with you on what you've said. People will want something comforting that they already see. And everybody wants to solutionize, and nobody actually understands the tech better than you guys. And so smart procurement people should be, and this is like the evolution of procurement, they should be telling you, this is the outcome I want. Show me three options how to get to the outcome,
Mm.
you know? And that is what a good procurement person should be doing, rather than saying the outcome has to be a three-step, kind of process.
Yeah.
I don't know how many steps you guys have and how it looks like, but this is how it should make me feel at the end. And this is how, or the stakeholders, and this is how it should solve these problems. So this outcome-based working with the supplier is something that is happening with more mature and sophisticated procurement organizations um, in every sphere of actually categories. That's what they should be doing. Yeah. But of course, there's also human nature. So I agree with you. Like, you are the experts, so let the experts do the experting. You need to know what problems they're trying to solve. In terms of the problems, again, they need to figure out on a baseline level what AI can and cannot do in order to be able to give you the problems. It can draft emails. That's a real easy. Well, yeah, ChatGPT can write emails better than I can. Yeah. But if that is what it takes to go step one, then that's what it is. But the capability of research and analysis on the data set that you have is huge. And so
Mhm.
that augmentation, that other insight, that other voice. So, for example, you feed it contracts, you feed it your own templates, you feed it what you want, the contracts to be, and then you feed it the supplier paper and say, okay, give me an understanding of how it de-risks me or exposes me. It'll have an answer. It'll have an answer faster than you will have it, or any paralegal or legal. Is the answer 100% correct? No. Is that another opinion that you can have a look at and spar with? Totally yes. So in CLM, I see that there is contract lifecycle management. I see that there are huge opportunities, but I also see huge opportunities in it as a layer on top of robust data sets to query it in an easy, non-techie way. So show me my biggest supplier, show me my biggest risk, show me where I have the most amount of late payments. Something
Mm.
that maybe you needed to ask some analytics IT group, and they'll probably say, oh, I need a development. This is something, if you have the right, baseline data, AI could give you so much easier an answer for. And the other thing is hyper-personalization. So that's something that I don't see a lot of people doing yet. But for me, that is so exciting. And I think that's so exciting for marketing as well, is I think that the future of the procurement teams who will crack it, Spencer, is they will be using AI the way marketing and behavioral scientists use AI, but on their own stakeholders. And so I'm kind of working through something that's called the procurement influence engine that says we as procurement should gather data like crazy. Like, everybody should catalog like the world depends on it. Because the more data we have, the more we know everything about a stakeholder.
Yeah.
Their compliance suppliers, their non-compliance suppliers, their spend patterns by year, by department, by individual, their
Yeah.
projects, their budgets, their KPIs, whatever is on their internet or intranet, because every big department has an intranet that says what they do, you know? But is that actually what the spend data shows that they do? And then you have that spend cube, that data of that stakeholder marketing, and then you create procurement strategies based on actually understanding your stakeholder, like, you know like doing what behavioral scientists do by studying consumers. Because there's one thing that marketing says, or finance says, or logistics says, and then there's the actual behavior. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what they actually say and what they do. And what they
Yeah.
do, we can now decipher.
It's really interesting. I mean, this is a very fascinating topic. It's fascinating for a million reasons, and I think the question of data is an interest. I mean, you've inspired like 15 different thoughts, so I'm just trying to triage which ones to focus on. The first is around data collection. It used to be that people would say garbage in, garbage out. That was like a phrase that used to exist. In 5 years, nobody's going to be saying garbage in, garbage out. They're going to say anything in, gold out, right? Because it used to be that if you had poor data quality, like if a vendor had two different names and it wasn't in a clean vendor master, that would mess you up. But now AI is robust to being able to deal with language. It's a much more, there's a much bigger margin of error that it can accept and understand. And so in some ways, it doesn't really matter as much if your data is clean because you can actually start to do things with it, aggregate it, clean it.
So I agree with you to a point.
Okay.
And so that's where we need to become hyper focused on the data. So this example of Deloitte and Touche, D&T or Deloitte or whatever, all the different permeations of names that now AI is smart enough to roll up for the purposes of giving you a report that is probably going to be to 99% correct. There's one use case, and I agree with you. I give you another use case. So I used AI augmented ESG systems. And what they did in certain countries is they would give me loads of false positives because the name of the supplier would be featured somewhere, which is not a name of the supplier, but it just got it wrong. AI improves, as you know, all the time, but there are still a lot of issues, though, when you have to do a certain type of high risk decision based on the data that AI gives you. So you need to know its limitations. So in some cases, these issues where AI would scrape the internet and bring back certain things upon which you can then decide your strategy. That is for me high risk, and I would not 100% go, it's fine, AI will sort it out, because it still doesn't understand language. It still doesn't understand behavior to the level that we need it to. And there are still too many suppliers I've been in Asia for 12 years, too many suppliers, but even the small social enterprises in the UK and the US that do not have a strong enough digital footprint. So if you use AI to use AI and nobody else, no human in the loop, for decision making that impacts stuff, you know,
Right.
like that, you are losing out, and a lot of people are losing out. So I'm saying still a lot of false positives in some amazing ESG software that was scraping using AI. And also, I'm seeing a huge disadvantage of small businesses that do not have a strong AI footprint. So depends. You see, depends. I tell you another one that I'm geeking out on: cataloging. So boring. But the reason why I think we need to catalog is not because AI now can find it on the net. I don't want AI to find it on the net. I don't want that because I want to restrict my people purchasing IT. I want them to go to my internal catalog first. So having enough information about what you have in stock in order to take from that first and then go outside, or even being able to do zero touch invoicing because your base data is correct rather than doing more sourcing activities. Like, so it becomes hyper focused on the use case, is what I'm saying. And that's where I'm also thinking, like saying AI is good or AI is bad is so last century because we need to be really
Right.
specific in what it does. It's like you're saying, what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah, it's fascinating. So I guess here's the sort of ultimate question in all of this, which is, do you feel that, well, I mean, I guess maybe this is another last century phrasing, but do you feel that procurement will be augmented or replaced eventually by these tools. And there are different companies at DPW. Some are tools to help you do more work faster. And then there was one company I remember where they were wearing these headbands that said, hire me. And I thought they were young kids trying to get internships or something. And what they actually meant, it was cheeky. They were saying, hire me, but really hire our agent, our bot, to do the job that you would have otherwise hired a person for. So that might be one question, or maybe the other question is just how does the job shift? Because it could be that the procurement managers of today end up looking like data scientists tomorrow, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the data science is really so taken care of now that it becomes purely about the in-person interactions and purely about the relationships, which are things that internet-based LLM just can't do. I mean, there's no physical body for an LLM. It can only do things that involve reading and writing from a screen and clicking and typing. I mean, that is the full scope of what its input output system is. So, I'm curious to get your thoughts. How does it change the job? Just summarizing my compound question: replacement versus augmentation, and then how does the job change over the next 5 to 10 years if augmented?
The roles will definitely shift and it'll definitely augment it. Just as like old tech, as I've had a stint in SAP Ariba. Before I had a stint in SAP Ariba, I implemented SRM. Was that painful over like 75 countries in a bank? And every time we thought that procurement will be replaced or people will be replaced, we won't need so many people. I would say that maybe there is a shrinkage shrinkage of the number of people, but the roles move around. So from having roles, having bigger category teams, you might have smaller category teams, but you would have a bigger data science and analytics and an insight team. But you cannot replace people 100, well, you can replace people 100% if the role is SOP based. So if you write everything down and you do everything by a process step, then totally procurement can be replaced. So my challenge to procurement when I talk to them is actually the people of the future. They say, oh, there's going to be a small, team of deep commercial experts. For me, actually, the team is going to be deep tech and tech that understands LLMs and Gen AI, because you need to still make sure it doesn't go rogue or it doesn't go crazy or it doesn't protect itself. It does what it wants and it's exciting, but you have to have people looking after it, right? You have people who are very strong commercial experts, but actually the people who are going to evolve and thrive are psychologists and behavioral scientists. Because at the end of the day, what you want to be doing is you want to influencing your internal stakeholders to buy in the way that mostly benefits the organization, not the individual people or egos or whatever. So for that, you need to understand human behavior. So
Mhm.
actually, procurement always says like, oh, you should speak to marketing different, but to finance. But do they actually know what that means? Is that is that an Excel versus a pretty PowerPoint? And that's the extent of maybe personalization that they go to. For me, I think procurement that survives is going to be hyper personalized. And that's why I'm geeking out on this behavioral scientist thing, because I believe that we need to start behaving like marketing and we need to profile the organization, really understand what they want, create pathways for them to buy or curate the budgets in a way that is hyper personalized for stakeholders. So you're already being very specific as saying direct and indirect's not the same. And I agree with you, but I'd go even down. I had that cool conversation with somebody and I said, if I start my CPO career again, rather than just putting a rebound, I would understand what my three top categories of spend are and really find the solutions that address the pain points of these categories and then bring it all together with a shiny layer, like not intake layer, but a
Yeah.
shiny general workflow management layer. Because the behavior of every single department is very, very different, and their needs are very, very different. So if we want to stay relevant, we would need to understand them so well that we're really in step with how they think. And that's what AI can give us. So that's what I'm very excited about. So I think we're going to have behavioral scientists sitting there, data geeks and analysts sitting there, and commercial people. But commercial and behavior people, it's like a hostage negotiator. Do you know that guy, Chris Voss? Score.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's coming for his show. He's coming to do a show in April in London that I'm going to go have a look at, because I followed him quite a lot, but I want to see him face to face. But this guy is steep deep, and he's doing negotiation, but it's all psychology. It's everything is psychology. So if we can do that, if we are up for it as procurement, we're going to thrive. We're going to be a commercial function. Otherwise, we're going to be replaced, because if we put everything on SLPs, 3 quotes an hour, and this is how you decide a supplier. Yeah, that AI can do at scale and better than we do.
Mm-hmm. Makes a ton of sense. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. I think that's needless to be said. We've touched on a range of topics, from the mastery of marketing and procurement at P&G 30 years ago, to retooling and retraining the procurement function for the modern era, questions of replacement versus augmentation, the actual how to stay close to the business, and whether SOPs will lead to standard operating procedures will lead to job replacement over job augmentation. So this has been a fascinating conversation. You've given me and our viewers a lot to chew on. So I think we're going to have to do another session, because I think we've just gone through part 1 of maybe part 2 or multiple more. So thank you so much, Victoria, for joining today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Spencer. It was an absolute pleasure. It's great to see you again.